Coming up on today's Locked On Senators. Last week on this very show, Pierre Dorion came on and laid out the potential options with Alex DeBrincat. Now it's already been a week, so what's next for the Sens sniper?
And we continue our NHL Draft profiles with 3 players today: Dalibor Dvorsky, Ryan Leonard, and Zach Benson.
Oh man, if the Sens had a first-round pick in the top 10, one of these guys would be an Ottawa Senator. All that's coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 814 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Please like and subscribe wherever you download your podcast. We're also available on YouTube, where we are also putting out each individual draft profile. We will have over 70 when it's all said and done. Today is Tuesday, June 6th, and Pilsy, watching Matthew Tkachuk in the Stanley Cup final last night just makes me beg, wish, hope for the day that we see Brady doing the same thing out there. Maybe with a couple extra wins, though.
Yeah, and a couple less 10-minute misconducts added onto there. But, I mean, that hit on Jack Eichel, wow. I don't think that's got to be one of the most clean, perfectly executed hits I've seen in a long time. Just perfect open ice hit. Eichel's got the puck with his head down, and you can see it right as Eichel gets up. He's like, the wind's knocked out of him, and he's not pissed off. He's just like, I got to get it off the ice right now. I'm absolutely gassed.
And then we almost had a Paul Correa type moment after he got rocked from Scott. That's probably the biggest hit in the Stanley Cup final since Scott Stevens on Paul Correa, at least from your immediate memory. And obviously that one stands out
and
probably
clean,
more than other. Right. And at the time that Scott Stevens hit was clean.
Yes.
Maybe not anymore.
No.
But him coming out in the third period, and after Florida scored, now they weren't going to come back in the game.
No.
It was 4-1 in the third period, but you're like, oh, is this a TSN turning point for the series? Is Eichel out? He comes back, sits on the bench. Is he just going to be a decoy, or he's going to play? He comes out and just rips down the ice, wins a puck battle, puts it out front. They score. 7-2 Vegas ends up being the final score. Complete blowout. Bobrovsky gets pulled, but yeah, that hit was absolutely wild. And you look at Jack Eichel after the game, he's like, yeah, that's on me. And it is.
Yeah.
It's 100% on him. And it's almost a bad thing that he's so explosive in his stride, because he took 2 monster strides, looked down at the puck, and that was enough time for Matthew Tkachuk to completely blow him up. Now, there was no penalty on that play. It was Matthew Tkachuk going out of his way to go at Alex Pietrangelo after the initial scrum, which is ironic because Pietrangelo lived with the Tkachuk family as a rookie in St. Louis.
Guys, yeah.
There's a bit of a relationship there. So, man, just intense hockey. And this, okay, for those who maybe aren't as into the Stanley Cup final, you see a hit like that, you see the animosity like that, Game 3 must watch, right?
Oh, I'm watching all of these games. It's appointment viewing for me. It's the Stanley Cup finals, and sure, maybe on paper it doesn't seem that enticing, but this is a good matchup, and I like both of these teams. And there was another big hit on Gudas, of all guys, getting trucked. I think was it Nick Hague?
I think it was a smaller player than that. Let me see.
No, it was Barbashev. Absolutely trucked him.
Barbashev,
that's good hockey.
Barbashev is what I hope Ridley Gregg can become. Not the biggest guy, but just plays mean hits, can just get under your opponent's skin. He's going to get paid this summer.
Big time. Yeah, that was a great move for Vegas and for Barbashev.
Yeah, 100%. So we got plenty of time to dissect the Sens roster. If you missed it, though, we did do exit interviews for each and every player on the roster. We did our prospect list. We've really covered every angle of the Ottawa Senators on ice. And now it's just shut up and wait till training camp in a sense where it's like, okay, the decor pretty well set. We had a discussion on the third bottom pair. What depth forwards will be brought in? We'll have an episode for that closer to free agency. Like there's some names out there that may not be the sexiest ones, but I've got a few that I have circled. So we'll get to those closer to free agency. But right now it's draft profile season. We're into the top 10 and we've already done the top 5. And beyond that, like Pillsy, we're doing 6, 7, 8 today. And the average ranking for the highest of these 3 guys is 9. Like there is not a consensus after the top 5. And let me ask you this. Do you think any of the 3 guys we're profiling, you already named them in the intro, will any of them sneak into the top 5? Or do you think it's that clear cut that these guys are all after in the next tier?
I think there's one guy that rankings wise could sneak into the top 5. But now, if you're asking me mock draft wise, will a team select him in the top 5? I don't think so.
Dude, Elite Prospects draft guide just came out yesterday. It's absolutely worth the entire year-long subscription to Elite Prospects, like $14 a month after tax, but it's complete. And you get the game logs. It's so easy. We use that a lot, obviously, too. But Pillsy, there was a scout that said more and more industry folk believe Matvei Michkov will fall out of the top 10. Top 10.
Wow.
If you're the Chicago Blackhawks, you have to trade up immediately. They have the 19th overall pick in this draft. If they left this draft with Bedard and Michkov, like they're going to win multiple Stanley Cups.
You've basically got Kane and Taves. You're starting an era over again. Not that I'm saying, I'm Bedard and Kane are similar type players, but Taves and Michkov are not. But what I'm saying is you've got 2 generational talents added to your mix. Wow.
Yeah. Like I would almost say to a team, if it's like 9th overall and there's still no Michkov off the board, I would say anybody but Bedard, you can have anyone off my roster. Like take 2 pieces. There's nothing that you can even have Zaitsev. We'll throw in Nikita Zaitsev.
Yeah. Nice.
Now let's have a quick conversation about Alex DeBrincat. We want a Sens topic on every show. And yesterday, Elliot Friedman, well, he regurgitated what Pierre Dorion told us. No credit. Come on. That's why we're TSN guys here. Hey, Bills?
Big time. Yeah. Frege. What's going on there?
Come on. We listen to 32 thoughts. You can't give us one thought. Come on.
Yeah. Give us one of the thoughts. Come on.
Yeah. Come on. We just need one thought. But basically, the Senators are exploring the trade market for Alex DeBrincat. It would be negligent not to.
I mean, he's unsigned right now. Like they have his rights. That's where it's at right now. So you got to be making calls if you're Pierre Dorion.
Yeah, tomorrow on Sportsnet, are the Winnipeg Jets exploring the trade market for Pierre-Luc Dubois? Like they're 1 year out from unrestricted free agency. This is when you need to know what the future holds. We saw last year with Matthew Tkachuk being like, hey, I'm not going to sign here beyond this year. He didn't say I demand a trade. He would have gone back to Calgary and played out his contract. But what value does that bring? Then you end up being like Johnny Gaudreau and ending up with your hands in your pockets and you're not able to do anything. You lose out value on that player. So it's very, I think, not notable at all, but I think it's very kind of just doing your job for Pierre Dorion to go out there and explore what the trade market is. I still think that he's going to sign. If it comes down to it, it's not an on ice thing. I don't know what better opportunities are out there than in Ottawa right now for him. There's an open spot on a top 6 left wing, and you're either going to play with Tim Stützle or Josh Norris. It would be such a shame for Alex DeBrincat to come to Ottawa and only play, like 15 minutes total with either of them?
Yeah, it'd be crazy. And I think I agree with you. On ice, what better spot is there? Especially you've already got a year of experience with these guys. But, Ross, on a cap-friendly look at things, there are a lot of teams that could pay Alex DeBrincat much more and would be happy to, rather than the Ottawa Senators.
If it comes down to it where he says long-term, I need $9 million or more, if I'm Ottawa, I'm looking at the trade market even. Like, even if he wants to be here, I don't think you can pay him $9+ million.
No, especially long-term like that. I am standing on this stance, and I feel like I'm a lone person on this stance. I still think short-term 1 to 3 year, not 1, 2 or 3 year deal is the right move for both sides. Like I don't know why I'm the only one on this. Everyone's like either trade him or lock him up 8 years. I don't see the sense of for the team or the player having him locked up for 8 years.
Hockey players are so funny like that. And maybe it is the natural injury risk that accompanies the sport. But if the cap is going to go up, and I mean, it's almost like the Senators sale. Wake me up when the cap actually goes up. Wake me up when the sale actually happens.
They're both going to happen, though. But
it's
when?
just been trickling up and up. And Gary Bettman poured cold water on the fact that it could go up more than $1 million in his annual address right before the Stanley Cup final. But eventually you have to think there's that like right now you're holding the hose and you let go and all of a sudden it starts coming out. You hope that raises the cap. And in that case, like Austin Matthews is the only guy who's maximized his earning potential. Everyone else just seems they want the security. They want the 8 years. They want the 8 years. Matthews like, no, you're going to walk me right to UFA and I'm going to make $14 million. And I respect the hell out of him for that. Maybe it's not the best way to build a winner around a team, but hey, if your value is that, you're selling like how many 34 Toronto Maple Leafs jerseys think he's sold? You know what I mean? Like there's so much going the other way that, I mean, not that he's underpaid now making over 11, but even still, I respect these players who are willing to bet on themselves and take shorter term to be able to maximize down the road because Alex DeBrincat's coming off his worst season, right? At least since he established himself as a top guy.
Well, what I think of, Ross, to counter everyone that's like, no, all the players are just going to go for stability. Why would you take a risk and get an injury and then not make that money? Yeah, fair. But look back at the Nathan McKinnons, the Barkovs, the David Pasternaks. Look at those guys that signed longer term deals. They were making $5.5 million, $6 million. These are like top 10, top 5 players in the league. And sure, at the time, you're like, oh, decent deal. But then as that goes on and the cap goes up, it's like Nathan McKinnon's making like $6 million. Pasternak is making $6.6 million here. Like, what is going on? So that's going to happen again. It's going to be this cycle. If Alex DeBrincat was to sign an 8-year deal at, let's just say, $8 million, that's like 5 years down the road, $8 million is what second line players could be making. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I just think until the landscape shifts and the new TV deal comes and the economic blow from COVID is recovered and we're over that hill, why would any superstar player sign a long-term deal unless it's like the David Pasternaks where they know they can command whatever they want?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what this deal is, whether it's in Ottawa or if they trade him and he signs somewhere else. Like Alex DeBrincat's next contract fascinates the heck out of me.
Big time. Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah.
And we will have plenty of time to break that down right here on Locked On Senators. We're your daily home for Ottawa Senators and NHL Draft content on YouTube where you can subscribe. It really does help the show. Leave a comment below and you can subscribe on your favorite audio podcast platform as well. We've got 3 prospects from here on out. We are doing 3 prospects every single show up until the NHL Draft. That is June 28th. And live stream is in the works for potentially some, if not all, of NHL Draft Night. We're going to really discuss that. We've got some other draft plans for it as well. So that's all coming up. But right now, Dalibor Dvorsky, Ryan Leonard, Zach Benson. Next, you're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Everyone's heard of eBay, but did you know you can get parts for your car at eBay Motors? For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is that perfect fit. And it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, go to eBay Motors. Come on, it's easy. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part fits just right the first time around. You don't want to be tinkering with something that's not working. So just add your ride to My Garage and look for that green check mark so you know your part will fit. And if it doesn't, you get your money back. So just like sports, confidence is the name of the game. And with over 122 million parts and accessories on eBay Motors, you'll be back in the game in no time. So get the right parts, get the right fit, and get the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Check out eBay Motors today.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Owl & Co. Grooming. Owl & Co. Grooming. It's a local company that's started by Chris Sinclair, and he wants you to make sure that your grooming routine is something that you look forward to every single day. Their starting lineup includes hair tonics, sea salt sprays, and utility bombs. It's versatility at its finest. Pillsy, all of their products, as you know, are made with natural ingredients like coconut oil and sweet almond oil that will ensure that your skin gets the nourishment that it needs. They carefully choose their ingredients like shea butter to be safe for sensitive skin. There's no time for blemishes here at Owl & Co. They want you to go outside your comfort zone and start with their products every morning. You'll see that creating a grooming routine doesn't have to suck, and in no time, it can actually be a part of the day that you look forward to. Again, it's a Sens fan. Help Sens fans at Owl & Co. Grooming. They're all about helping you find that grooming routine free from complications. Our merch is in the mail, Pillsy. I got some sweet merch coming. You got some sweet merch coming. You can check out their merch at Owl & Co. It's a bit of a Sens theme, dare I say, for the merch for Owl & Co. So go check them out and use our promo code Senators10. Senators 15. Whoa, we added 5%. Senators 15.
Woo!
At checkout, 15% off. We know you're going to love it. Father's Day coming up. Don't allow him to be disappointed. Go make sure that you're taking care of him with Senators 15 promo code owlandcogrooming.com. All right, Pillsy. Locked on Senators in June.
Let's go.
Oh, man, unreal. D-Day anniversary. I actually took a trip to Normandy a few years ago, and wild to think that our freedom is because of days like that.
Yeah.
So shout out to all the brave men and women out there
Big time.
who helped allow us to sit here and shoot the breeze about hockey on a Tuesday morning here just after 11 a.m. Still no word on Sens ownership updates. It's almost become a joke at this point, Pillsy. If we went back and watched how dialed in we were to the sale for the week after the final bids were in, just waiting for the shoe to drop. We were like checking Twitter during our show and everything. Like, is it going to come out today? And now it's radio silence. Do you think that's just Gary Bettman trying to put a kibosh on any news overshadowing the Stanley Cup final?
No, I don't think so. I think this is all about GCP, the company doing the sale for the Melnyk estate. It's all about them jacking up the price as high as it can go. And I mean, fair. That's what this is all about. But Ross, oh boy,
See at the bottom?
Bettman buying time. It's almost done. Yeah.
There you go. Wake me up. Wake me up.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I think everyone thought this was going to be done sooner, and it's still dragging on.
Is it ever? Wake me up when you sell now. That's kind of where I'm at with all of this. I also want to say quickly, Everett and Ottawa, we're thinking about you. Be safe. The scenes look wild with all the smoke coming in, and make sure that you're staying inside as much as you can with the poor air quality over there as Pillsy's standing on his mountaintop out in the Blue Mountains. All right, let's get to our draft profiles. Coming in at number 6 on this year's 2023 NHL Draft rankings, it's Dalibor Dvorsky. He's been playing in Sweden in the second tier in the Allsvenskan, but he's another Slovak. Pillsy, the resurgence of Slovak hockey is here. They had, was it 3 first-round picks? First overall, second overall last year with Juraj Slavkovsky, Simon Nemec, and Filip Mesar as well. So do the Habs go for a third dip into Slovakia at 5? Dalibor Dvorsky right in that mix, but he's the type of guy where I feel like there's a couple guys who we've done over the years where they've been on the scene for so long where it's almost like scouts just try to find something wrong with their game, or maybe it's just an oversaturation of viewings of these players because when he was 15 years old, he was being touted. It's like Connor Bedard, Dalibor Dvorsky, and now we see there's quite a gap between the two.
Well, the way I look at that, Ross, is very similar to Atu Ratti. So Atu Ratti, years before his draft, this guy's going number 1. He's top 3 for sure. Put it in the bank. He has so much talent. We're scouting this guy insanely for the next couple years. But then what happens, Ross, is when these guys dominate at such a young age and scouts are aware of them and are watching them, if they don't continue to make improvements, then scouts kind of sour on them because it's like, well, sure, that was amazing when you were 15, but you're still doing the stuff we're doing at 15, which is exceptional. But now it's kind of average at 17, right? So I think that might be something that's happened to Dalibor Dvorsky here. Not to say that's a big knock on him, but sometimes when you're not able to kind of compound those skills and keep building and building, it kind of it brings you down a little bit.
He's still number 6, though, on our rankings. And our rankings are brought to you by 7 different scouts. We add up their lists, check it twice, and then divide it by the amount of people who have them on their list. So Dalibor Dvorsky is 6'1", 200 pounds and 1. And he's been playing with AIK in the Allsvenskan, where he had 6 goals, 8 assists, good for 14 points in 38 games, 16 penalty minutes as well. And he actually played 17 games in that pro league as a 16-year-old as well, which goes to show you that this guy was kind of above his age class for a long time growing up. Bob McKenzie, whose list is predicated off of scouts, not his own thoughts, the scouts that he talks to, he does a poll, and that's the highest one at 6. But this just shows you just how all over the place this draft is, because only one of our 7 scouts have him as high at 6, but that's where he lands on average based on the scores of the other players in this area. We've got Craig Button at 9, Corey Pronman at 8, Scott Wheeler at 9, Rachel Dory at 9, Chris Peters at 9, Elite Prospects down at 11. And what's interesting about Elite Prospects' thoughts of him as well is they kept going back and forth. They couldn't make a decision, Pilsy, on Dalibor Dvorsky. They kept going back and forth. I want to pull up exactly where it was, because he started the year a little bit higher. Then he went down. Then here it is. He started at number 8. Then went to 11, then 17, and then finished the year off at 11. So it's just been all over the place for Dalibor Dvorsky.
Yeah, it really has. And that's what a bunch of scouts, like even Scott Wheeler, Corey Pronman, their kind of initial comments on Dvorsky are, well, it's been an up and down year. And Ross, like you mentioned, if you subscribe to EP, you can get the game logs. And that's very apparent looking through his game logs. Couple games in J20, handful of games in the Allsvenskan, back, forth, up and down. And his minutes, Ross, it's crazy. He's bounced around the leagues, and he was playing anywhere from 5 minutes a night to 21 minutes a night. Like, it's insane the differences that he's kind of went through throughout the season. And I think that was obviously apparent with the Allsvenskan coaches saying, I think he's ready for this, but maybe not full time, and we need to keep sending him down or what have you. So, an interesting path for Dvorsky in his draft year.
If you want to see some eye-popping numbers, though, go look at his stats against his own age group, and not even that, because he's one of the younger players in this draft. He's a June birthday, so he'll be turning 18 in June in a week and a half. He'll be 18. So still 17 years old right now. But man, look, you want to roll out those junior numbers, because for some people they just see the numbers and don't necessarily take into the league. But this guy, if you put him in against his age group, he excels.
Yeah, in the J20 National League, in 10 games, he had 10 goals, 11 assists, and 21 points. And then in the playoffs, he played 3 games in that league and had 4 points. So it's clear that amongst his peers, he's very good. And
that's J20 against his own peers with the Slovak under-18 World Under-18 tournament, had 13 points in 7 games. So even though this guy's known as a two-way forward, kind of a guy who you can put in, he plays the middle of the ice. I think we did mention he's a center, but he's the kind of guy who's going to be responsible defensively. It's just against men, the offense hasn't popped, but that's the gamble you're taking here, is can the offense end up popping as he grows into his frame?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I've had to remind myself, rehashing this draft process, that you do need to judge players on the scale of the competition they're playing. Like, a guy putting up huge numbers in the queue is going to look very different than a guy putting up less than average numbers in the Allsvenskan or in Liga, right? So it is a fine balance when you're looking at these high-end prospects, being like, okay, those numbers are underwhelming, but where was he playing? So that's a big point to make. And Dvorsky is really touted as a two-way guy. So his numbers aren't the full story here. And he's got good size, and he's able to play well defensively. He's going hard for those puck battles in the boards. And I think he's a player that has a very high floor. Like, he's going to be a safe pick, but maybe not such a high ceiling. You know what you're going to get from him, but how much can he improve, I think, is what scouts are going to be looking at here.
I think in a floor to middle situation, I like Jordan Staal as a player comparable for him. I think he's going to be a consistent guy, maybe not like the leadership. I know Jordan Staal has been a captain for a long time and was also a very high pick, I believe, 3rd overall.
Yeah, he was.
I kind of like that, like, really defensive minded, but can contribute offensively. Elite Prospects has it a bit different. They have Bo Horvat and Elias Lindholm as the shades of when they do it. They don't like the direct player comparable, but just shades of, and they call him versatile, a tactician, and just a guy whose physicality will really help, I think, as he grows older. They have him as the 4th best power forward in the draft and the 4th best two-way forward in the draft. So all interesting notes there from Elite Prospects, and you agree with them that he's a safe pick. Where do you see him kind of landing in this range? Where do you see a team fit for him?
As far as like one specific team that's going to pick him?
Yes.
I'm trying to think who is in that range.
Philly at 7 kind of stands out.
Yeah, I don't see the Coyotes taking him. I don't see the Habs could take him, but I don't think they're going to do that. I've got Will Smith as a Hab. So yeah, Philly makes a lot of sense here. The thing with Dvorsky is I don't know if he's going to have that breakthrough quality that a top 10 pick in one of the deepest drafts should have here. Like, solid two-way forward, good size, plays well defensively. He's a shoot-first center that's going to create chances by just getting the puck on net, and his teammates are going to get rebounds. But I don't know. For me, Ross, and I'm going back to my 5-star rating system, I got him at 3.5 stars, and not because I want to knock him that much, but just because I don't see that huge excitement surrounding him.
EP Draft Guide. What are the scouts saying about him? They're saying he's more quick than explosive, a good skater, but perhaps not a great one. His anticipation serves him well as a playmaker, but he's not exceptionally deceptive by any means. His shot is well above average, and perhaps the closest he comes to having a defined separating skill. Corey Prodman says Dvorsky is quite dangerous inside the offensive zone, has excellent puck skills in small areas, and can make checkers routinely miss in open ice. Yeah, I think that the perfect situation for him is to come over to North America as soon as possible. He's been in the Europe system for so long and kind of been bouncing back and forth as we've seen with other guys. I think if you put him in your system as early as this upcoming season and have him go to the AHL, I think that would be perfect. But don't have him bounce up and down and make his NHL debut next year. Do the Sens podcast, Josh Norris development path. Full year in the AHL. Don't touch him. See where the development's at. If he's showing like, hey, he's banging on the door, make the team out of camp next year. But if not, I think 2 years in the AHL could be really good for Dalibor Dvorsky.
Yep, I agree. Definitely.
So that's Dalibor Dvorsky, who comes in at number 6 on our 2023 NHL Draft rankings. If this is your first profile you're watching, all of them available to you on the Locked On Senators YouTube page. All right, coming up next, we have 2 more prospects to look at today, including one that would almost be guaranteed to become an Ottawa Senator if the Sens did have a pick in this range. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, back to Locked On Senators. I actually love draft time. It actually gets me so fired up.
I'm getting into it. I was struggling to get into it just because the Sens don't have a pick till, pick 10,000. So I wasn't too excited about the high end.
108.
No, yes, my apologies.
I made sure that we are profiling the player who each one of our scouts has at 108th overall.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see where the Sens go. But now that we're getting into it and we're starting to see the talent and you start thinking, ooh, this guy could work for this team. Oh, man, this guy's ranked way too low. You got to bump him up, all those kinds of things. I do get into that. So I'm here for draft month.
Coming in at number 7 on the Locked On Senators 2023 NHL Draft rankings, it's an absolute dog. It's Ryan Leonard out of the U.S. national team program. We just covered his centerman, Will Smith, on yesterday's show. And today it's Ryan Leonard, a right winger that is going to bring it physically. He's going to bring it with playmaking skill. He's got a great shot. This guy is probably the closest that we get, kind of like Cutter Gauthier last year,
Yes.
where he kind of brings those same elements and is just going to be the perfect complementary player in a top 6, top 9 role.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cutter Gauthier is definitely a good comparable, and he's on that top line of the USA team, and he is thriving. I mean, you start looking at the points, Ross, like 57 games, 51 goals, 43 assists, good for 94 points, and just like his buddies on that top line, Ross, we're going to see him at Boston College next season. Wow.
That's so cool that all 3 of them are going there, with Gabe Perreault being the third. All 3 of them are going to play college together. And guess who else is there?
Cutter Gauthier.
Cutter Gauthier. That's awesome.
Crazy.
Elite prospects and Chris Peters are the highest on Ryan Leonard. They have him at 6. Bob McKenzie has him at 7. Rachel Dory has him at 10. Wheeler and Prodman, so we'll just say The Athletic, has him at 11. And Craig Button has him at 12th on his list. He's 6 feet tall. He's 192 pounds. Right shot, right wing. Love this player. Love everything I'm reading about this player. Just feels like the kind of guy who you want to exude some patience with, because you don't want to put him into a role where he ends up being like a 3rd, 4th line guy, bottom 6 for lack of a better term, where he's just going around and shaking the glass every shift with monster hits. But I think what you need to understand with Ryan Leonard is that this is not, and I mean, just look at the stats there with the US program. This is not just a guy who has physical tools. This guy has elite skill as well.
Well, he wouldn't be hanging up on that top line if he didn't have the skills, right? Because those guys you mentioned, Will Smith and Gabe Perreault, I mean, those are highly talented guys, and it's a privilege to play on that top line in the U.S. program. So it's not like he's just there because they like him. Like, he obviously has the skill set to be there, and he's just one of those all-around good prospects. Like, he's got the lethal shot. He can make good passes. He's a solid skater, and he plays with a lot of drive. Like, this guy has a high motor, and he makes sure that every shift he's bringing it, and he's helping set up those high-end guys like his line mates.
He's also one of the most improved players, I think, if you ask the coaching staff at the U.S. program, where last year, his first year, you guys are there for 2 years. Like, yeah, the points were all right against his own age group. Excuse me. He was at 20 points in 26 games. And then he broke out at the under 18s as an underager for that program, right? He was in the same tournament this year, wore an A this year. We'll get to his stats this year, but had 5 goals in 6 games. And Scott Wheeler had this in his preseason rankings. He said, I won't be surprised if he challenges Will Smith and Moore, Oliver Moore. No, Oliver Moore. The other, we'll get to Oliver Moore. Don't worry about that. But he would challenge him on the stat sheet this year while providing all the energy that he does as well. Well, Wheeler was a check mark on that one. This guy is just been a breakout star, and that continued at this year's under 18. Pilsy, we talked about 20 points being good in 7 games. How about 17 points for our guy Ryan Leonard here at the tournament? Like, and what I like about him too, yeah, he's physical, not a whole lot of penalties. Right? Like, yeah, 46 PIMs in 57 games. Like, he plus 77. Is that good? But you look at it, and at the under 18, sometimes like these rough and tumble type players, they'll get to those tournaments and maybe not know where the line is in the IHF, and only 2 minor penalties in the 7 games. So I look at him as the kind of guy where, yeah, the upside is crazy high, but you also are guaranteeing yourself, like much like Dvorsky, but in a different way. This guy's a safe pick. He's going to be in the NHL for a long time. And the question I ask here on the side, more skill or grit? What do you think defines Ryan Leonard?
I would say grit. And the reason I think those penalty minutes are so low when you think of a guy of his skill set is he's not the guy, from my understanding, that's out there making big hits. Like, he's not a imposing player. He just doesn't give up. Like we have. He's an absolute dog. Like, he's just in there working hard. He's not trying to be the most physical player. He's trying to be the hardest working player. And there is a difference between that. And I think he toes that line really well. And the thing is, there's not a lot of creative dangles or stick work, much like we saw with some of the guys like Michkov or even Will Smith. Like, that's not his game. He's going to play a meat and potatoes type of game where I'm just going to go north, south. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to get pucks on net. And there's nothing wrong with that if you have the right supporting players around you. So I think an NHL team is going to be very happy with Ryan Leonard. Like, this is a guy, Ross, I see when, in the regular season, he's going to put up nice numbers, but in the playoffs, that's when a general manager is going to be like, I'm glad we have this guy.
I was literally about to say the type of player you win with when he's in your top 9. Like, he's versatile. He can play anywhere. I don't think he's too, egotistical for a third line role, right? He could be that guy who in a pinch can go up and play in your top 6. But I think there's some bigger swings for upside a little bit later on in our rankings. Yep. But there's no one who's going to bring you the consistent effort, energy with the sprinkle of skill, the seasoning of skill in there, as well as Ryan Leonard. So the scouts completely agree with us, Pillsy, because this scouting report just kind of encapsulates what he is as a player, the EP Draft Guide, Elite Prospects. Leonard brings it every shift, no matter the score, no matter the stakes. It's always overtime of Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final when Leonard steps onto the ice. If you're not up for the fight, that's your problem.
Yeah, I think that perfectly ties in what Leonard's all about. I love it. And Wheeler, he goes on to say, Leonard's the kind of player who will score, add physicality to a line, and slide up and down a top 9 in an NHL lineup while endearing himself to the coaches. Yeah, bang on.
Bang on. And where do you want to see him? Because for me, and I know we just said this with Dvorsky, but doesn't this guy just scream Philadelphia Flyers, much like Cutter Gauthier last year?
Yeah, I'll hop on that take with you as well, Ross. I think either they're going Dvorsky or Leonard here. I would even put Leonard as more of the favor here because he's going to have that chemistry with Cutter Gauthier. So that would be a great pick for the Flyers.
But the other part of this, I think, is worth noting is that Arizona went so heavy on centers last year with 2 picks in the top 11 at center. Logan Cooley at 2 and Connor Geekie at 11. Now, could Arizona reunite a couple former teammates as well? Maybe the next guy on our ranking could be going to Arizona to join Connor Geekie again, where he played in the WHL. Not so much on the same line, but they've obviously had some success there together. But Ryan Leonard is the type of player where I think he's probably 2 years away from being an NHLer, maybe 3 until he's really like establishing. Because these guys who are playing hard and playing physical, they're the ones who you don't want to throw them to the wolves too early, right? Against the best in the world.
Well, and you want to make sure he has the right line mates. Like, I'm not saying that he can't succeed without the right line mates, but you're doing him a disservice if you put him with guys that don't match well with him. So I think be patient with Ryan Leonard because I don't think he's going to explode onto the scene. I think he's going to get onto the scene and he's going to figure out how to maintain that style of game in the pros.
And we're going to find out sooner than later. The NHL Draft is coming up June 28th. Ryan Leonard will hear his name for lots more draft content. Head over to Locked On Senators on YouTube. All right, Pillsy, coming in at number 8 on our NHL Draft rankings 2023. It's Zach Benson, the player who I've had the most live viewings of being in Winnipeg. He plays for the Winnipeg Ice. He's not the biggest in stature, but that does not matter when it comes to Zach Benson's overall game. This guy plays with speed. He plays with power. His vision is incredible. If he was 3 inches taller, he'd be a guaranteed top 5 pick.
Yep, definitely. And Ross, I love this player. I mean, Zach Benson, his highlights blew me away. And Ross, even you mentioned this last year. You said Zach Benson's the best player on his team. And Connor Geekie and Matt Savoy are right there. Like he's the best player and he's not even going to be drafted last year. So I really think that the size is obviously a thing for Zach Benson, but he does so much else away from the puck that if you're so concerned about the size, you're missing the point here. You're missing how good of a player this can be. And he's so young. I'm sure he's going to get some more growth in here. So you can't it's like Erik Karlsson. Like, remember we talked to, was it Pierre we were talking about with Erik Karlsson? And he says, he goes to Brian Murray, I want to select Karlsson. And Brian Murray goes, you really want to put your career on the line for what, a 5'10", 150-pound defenseman? And Pierre says, yes, I do. And I mean, look at Karlsson now. So the people that are so obsessed with the size of these prospects need to chill out a little bit. I will say it does matter when it comes to defensemen and maybe, later round guys, but the guys that have the elite skill of the players like these ones, like Zach Benson specifically, size does not define their effectiveness.
You know what I like to say? They've been small their whole life. Like, it's not like all of a sudden they're like, wow, these guys around me are so much taller. Like, that's been the case his whole career, and it hasn't bothered him one little bit. He's the type of player who thrives in those situations. And ever since he entered the WHL, he was, I want to say, number one, if not
he was drafted a little later. Yeah.
14th overall into the WHL. And every year he didn't get a little bit better. He got a lot better. His first year, 24 games. That was in the bubble during COVID, 20 points in 24 games. The next year, absolutely exploded, 63 points, 25 goals in 58 games. And like you said, when I went to go see him live, he was the best player on the ice every single game I saw. I saw 5 games last year. I saw 5 more this year. There was a game they played Regina. It was him and Connor Bedard, and he was the better player on the ice. That one game, obviously, that's why you go see bigger samples, not one, but he was incredible out there. And you look at this year, just exploding, 60 games, 36 goals, 62 assists, good for 98 points and 49 PIMs.
Wow.
Dude, the last 2 years in the postseason, 40 points in 30 games. Now, what's really interesting too, they had like the mighty tots line, we'll call them, in Winnipeg. The 3 players, it was Zach Benson with Connor McLennan in particular for the most part. I'm trying to remember the name of the third guy on that line. And they were all like 6 feet or less. But Matthew Savoy, of course, Matthew Savoy.
There you go.
So the 3 of those guys, first round pick, 8th overall to Buffalo last year. You think size was an issue for them? No chance this year. And he had 40 points in 30 playoff games, because people say, oh, the game gets tougher. You know, you got to be bigger and stronger in the playoffs. That did not seem to be the case for him. Pillsy, rip off these rankings for us, and you can certainly see which one of these guys care about size more than others.
Yeah, no kidding. Before I do that, though, just for the people listening and not looking at this, his size is listed at 5'9", 163. So just so you have an idea of where he fits there. Now, on to the rankings. Bob McKenzie has him at 8. Craig Button has him at 14. Corey Pronman, the lowest on him, at 17.
Huh?
Yeah, 17.
17?
Scott Wheeler and Rachel Dory, both at 6. Chris Peters at 8. And Elite Prospects at 5. So that gives him an average rank of 9.1. And speaking of Elite Prospects, Ross, they're highest on him. And they gave him the #1 award in motor and two-way forward. Does that sound like a 5'9" guy to you, a guy who has the top motor and he's the top two-way forward? That's what I want to hammer on. We'll get to his offensive skill because I'm not trying to stray away from that. But I just want to focus on how good he is off the puck. That makes his size not a big deal here, because not only, Ross, is he able to deke through defenders with the puck and make incredible moves, but he's almost, if not as good, at picking the puck off defenders' sticks just as much. And you would not expect that from a little guy.
If you go to my Twitter, just search, go from Ross Levitan Benson. There's one goal that he scored where he picks up the puck, rips around his own circle to regroup, and then just goes through everyone and scores. He is an incredible talent that I hope the Habs don't get, which means they're going to take him.
No.
Based on last year. But he's an incredible talent. I think he's only getting better. And like you said, the defensive aspect of his game is incredible. And you wonder if that's going to be his calling card in the NHL. Maybe not. I see him as more of like a Johnny Gaudreau type player where he's putting the puck from the outside to in. He's always going into the dangerous areas. He's not worried about that. And you look at what Elite Prospects had him at. They tracked 10 of his games manually. Mitch Brown, 5-on-5 only.
Yep.
And you go through like it's offense, defense, and transition. 100 overall. 100. I've never seen that. Usually it's like the great players like 94, 95, 100. And now this is what Mitch Brown said about him. Many nights last season, it seemed like 16-year-old Zach Benson was Winnipeg's best play driver on a team that eventually had 3 first-round picks. Hey, doesn't that sound like internet scout Ross Levitan here? He orchestrated the game with high-paced manipulation, quick passing lanes, and a knack for being in the right place at the right time. This guy beyond, and obviously we always have to have the caveat, like outside of Connor Bedard, this guy might be the smartest player in the draft. We talked about Leo Carlson being in the mix with that. We talked about Michkov, Fantilli. This guy needs to be in that discussion. And if he was Fantilli's height, he might be challenging him for 2nd overall. That's how good of a player this guy is.
Yep, I agree. Honestly, I'm so high on this guy. It's mind-boggling to me to think Corey Pronman has him at 17, Ross.
17. No. 17. 17.
Yeah. Wait, that's what I said, isn't it? Or
I
you're
know.
just emphasizing it?
It's absurd.
Okay,
It's
yes.
absolutely absurd. It is.
Yeah.
It's honestly like if I was a GM and I had watched as much as I've watched of Zach Benson, which is like 12 games live, I would probably fire that scout.
Nice.
Like, I might have to take Pronman's rankings off our list.
Yeah, it's crazy. I could see him in my rankings sneaking into the top 5. Like, that's how good he is. And
I think he's 5 for me.
the eye test and analytics match up, because this is a quote I want to highlight here from EP from Mitch Brown. So the skill visualized in Brown's manual track data set, Benson's expected primary assists and slot pass success percentage check in at the 100th percentile, which you're talking about, in a sample that includes 700 forwards this season. In a multi-year data set of over 3,000 forwards, his underlying playmaking data is second only to one player, Ross. Try to guess who that player is.
Connor Bedard.
Connor McDavid. The greatest player in the world is the only player that has underlying playmaking data better than Zach Benson. I mean, it's incredible what he does, and all you need to do is look at some highlights of Benson, and you'll see that for yourself. Like, he's just so damn shifty out there, and he's a step ahead of, I would even say, his own teammates. I was going to say the opposition, but honestly, his own teammates might not be ready for the next move he's going to make.
And when you say that, you have to keep in mind his line mate was an 8th overall pick last year in Matthew Savoy, who's an unbelievable player. Now, something I noticed about Zach Benson is he played a bit of center last year. This year shifted to the wing. And I think that's a better spot for him to use his vision from the boards. It'll kind of give him a little more time and space, I think, to create. And this guy, he's magic. And you know what? Arizona went really heavy on size last year with the geeky pick. Even Maverick Lamoureux, the defenseman they took at the end of the first round, his parents were making out in the crowd. That's an all-time meme. If you haven't seen it, go check that out. Completely aside. But they're also not scared to have smaller players. Look at Matias Michelli as a rookie. And honestly, I see some shades of Matias Michelli in Zach Benson, the way that they're able to manipulate their body and make amazing plays. So Zach Benson, to me, you talk about a couple of the things. Well, he was also given on Elite Prospects the award for the best vision in the draft. Like, you talked about the defensive aspect of his game, but man, this guy can bring it offensively. I would love for Arizona to take him at 6 if Michkov's not there. That's obviously the prize jewel that if he falls, that's kind of where he should be. Arizona at 6. If Benson gets past 7, because I don't think he's really a Philly player, although Danny Briere in charge, that's a type guy right there. But if this guy goes 8 or later, he might be the steal of the draft.
Honestly, it's that we need to highlight that much. And I really think this is a high risk, high reward player, though, because I know I talked about how the size isn't an issue, but it could become an issue. Like, not all players are able to transition, but
read Pronman there. It's right to your point.
Yeah, I was going to say. So here's Corey Pronman, who had him at 17th. There is a fair amount of risk on his projection, but his strong compete and tremendous skill plus track record of scoring makes you think there's still a very good chance he could become a quality top 6 wing in the NHL. Now, Ross, I kind of want to push back on him being a winger. Now, I know the size typically will shift you to the wing, but he's so good defensively that I want him having free roam out there and being able to pick guys' pockets and get in spots. And just with the way his mind works, being a step ahead, if you're a winger, you kind of need to wait for the play to come to you often. So I think that would be a detriment to his hockey IQ, because I want him being the guy that gets first touch on the puck and setting things up. So although a small center is tough to do in the pros, I think his best skill set aligns with being a centerman.
So we took a quote from the guy who had him the lowest with Pronman at 17, and the EP Draft Guide, who has him way up at number 5. The EP Draft Guide says, simply put, Benson does not play small. He's interior driven as a puck carrier, protective on first touch, and capable of establishing inside positioning along the walls for retrievals. whoever gets this player is getting a heck of a player. And I think that he's going to come back to Winnipeg next year. He's going to absolutely it's going to be his team, right?
Yeah.
He and Savoy are both graduating. This is going to be Zach Benson's team next year. If they're even in Winnipeg, they're going to move to BC because they're playing at a 1,000 seat stadium right now.
They're going back to BC. They just left Cranbrook.
Well, I mean, if they go back, I heard Chilliwack could be an option. Guess what? Zach Benson played his minor hockey in Chilliwack, BC.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool. Interesting.
Yeah,
all right.
I want live viewing, so let's keep him in Winnipeg for at least one more year. But that's Zach Benson coming in at number 8, and I grit my teeth because he's not number 8 on our list. But hey, we take our scouts and we just verbal meme. The guy who's like this was like, whoa, hands off for us.
I got Zach Benson as a 5-star guy, 5 out of 5-star guy. Like that. It's incredible just watching him. So I hope that he doesn't get the NHL scout size fall on draft day. But like I said, whoever gets him is going to be very happy and fans should be excited.
For more on NHL draft coverage, make sure you're following on YouTube. And it could be a Lane Hudson situation where it's just like, you're like, wait, he went where? Yeah. At the draft that quickly after, where it's like hindsight 2020. But no. We told you before that he was that good. That's Zach Benson of the Winnipeg Ice. All right, Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is, Ross, how you feeling about your Florida Panthers Stanley Cup pick?
Not bad. Not bad. Feel very bad. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. Maybe I don't feel that bad.
Yeah, that was interesting there. But they're not getting swept, I don't think.
No.
They're winning at least one game in Florida.
You're not in trouble till you lose at home. But it's been a blowout. It's been very, very bad.
Yeah. This Vegas team is just so good. I believe it's their time.
It really is. Final thoughts for me. Stick taps to friend of the show, Joey Decord. Hey, yes. Joey Dax.
Attaboy. What a legend.
Joey Dax is going to the Calder Cup final. He's led the I almost called them the Flint Firebirds. No, the Coachella Valley Firebirds of the AHL. And he almost scored a goal to put an exclamation mark on it. It just rolled wide, but Joey Dax having himself a hell of a playoff run. Always one of our favorite guests. We've had him on for so many years now, and shot him a message afterwards just saying, like, we're really happy for him. Wish I could have said I saw it coming. Oh, yeah, I did. 924 save percentage in 19 playoff games this year, Pillsy. This kid is the real deal, and I'm still a bit bitter that Ottawa went through all those goalies this year but didn't pick up Dax off waivers.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Ross, I think we can give this away now. He mentioned to us, like, hey, if I'm available, it's not too crazy to think I could come back to Ottawa. So I really thought that was going to happen and was hoping for it.
I know. Unfortunately, not the case, but stick taps to Joey Dax. And hey, Max McCormick as well, the captain of the Coachella Valley Firebirds and other Sens abroad. But always want to see our boy Dax do well. And that's all for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to round out the top 10, get into number 11 overall. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.